The night was supposed to be ordinary, a small dinner among friends after a long work week, the kind where laughter fills the air and secrets stay comfortably buried. But when Emma's phone buzzed, the world shifted. She smiled faintly, lifting her glass. "It's just my cousin. She says she misses me already," she said. The words floated casually, meant for no one in particular. Yet beside me, Hannah, Emma's supposed cousin, choked on her drink, eyes flicking wide with disbelief. The chatter around the table faltered. I felt the hair rise on my neck, the pulse in my temple sensing with the flicker of the dim chandelier. Emma, calm as ice, kept eating, oblivious or pretending to be. I watched both women, two versions of truth colliding in real time. The air thickened with the scent of rosemary and lies. Someone laughed nervously, but no one remembered the joke. After dinner, I walked Hannah to her car, the tension still burning under her skin like static. She didn't speak until we reached the lot, her breath visible in the damp chill. "I haven't seen Emma in months," she whispered, eyes darting toward the restaurant door as if afraid Emma might appear. The truth trembled on her tongue. "She's lying to someone," she said, voice cracking. I nodded but didn't reply, because in that moment, I wasn't sure if Emma was lying to us, or to herself. The drizzle thickened into rain, washing the night in streaks of silver. Hannah turned away, clutching her coat tight, and I caught her reflection in a puddle, fragmented, uncertain, like the story we were both trapped in. I couldn't sleep. The rain kept whispering against my apartment windows, rhythmic and relentless. I replayed her words, her calm smile, that unreadable expression she wore when the lie slipped out. What could make someone fabricate something so easily disproved? My phone lit up at 2:17 a.m. An unknown number, a single text. "Don't tell her you know." My heart froze. No name, no context, just that warning. Outside, lightning cut across the skyline like a signature. I stared at the message until it dimmed, unsure if it was meant to protect me or warn me away. Morning came slow and colorless. Emma texted the group chat, thanking everyone for a beautiful night. The normalcy of her tone made my stomach twist. I stared at her message, wondering how easily people disguise deception behind emojis and punctuation. My mind kept drifting to the cousin's confusion, the wine spill, the flicker in Emma's eyes when she saw my expression. I needed answers, but I also feared them. Some truths rot in silence because exposure would burn too bright. Still, I typed a reply. "We should talk." When Emma arrived at my apartment, she looked flawless. Pressed beige coat, calm smile, eyes that hid entire storms. I offered coffee. She declined. "You're quiet," she said, sitting gracefully, legs crossed, posture unshaken. I wanted to confront her, but the question stuck in my throat. Instead, I asked softly, "Why did you say you were with Hannah?" Her gaze flicked toward the window, then back at me, sharp and unflinching. "Because sometimes," she said, voice steady, "the truth needs a disguise." Her words hung there, fragile and menacing all at once. In that moment, I realized this wasn't a misunderstanding. It was the beginning of something much darker. Emma stayed long after the coffee cooled between us. Every pause felt like a negotiation. Every word, a test. She kept glancing toward the window as though expecting someone to appear on the street below. "You shouldn't worry about what I said," she murmured, brushing a strand of auburn hair behind her ear. It was harmless, but her tone betrayed something. Fatigue, fear, or guilt. I couldn't tell. I leaned forward. "Then why did Hannah look so scared?" Her lips tightened. "Because she remembers things she shouldn't." The sentence lingered, heavy and cryptic. Outside, the city hummed faintly, unaware that the air between us had turned into a silent battlefield. Later that afternoon, I met Hannah again. This time in a quiet cafe tucked behind an alley, the kind that smelled of burnt espresso and secrets. She looked exhausted, her mascara slightly smudged, her hands trembling as she stirred her drink. "You don't understand," she said softly. "Emma isn't lying to hurt anyone. She's protecting someone." The way she said it made me colder than the rain outside. Protecting who? From what? Before I could ask, Hannah's eyes darted toward the door, and her voice dropped to a whisper. She wasn't supposed to tell anyone she was here. That night, I couldn't resist checking Emma's story. I called her office. No one had seen her all week. Her voicemail said she was traveling. The puzzle deepened, every piece contradicting the last. I went through my phone, scrolling through old photos of our group. Emma and Hannah laughing side by side months ago. No tension then, no distance, just ease. But the more I looked, the more I noticed tiny inconsistencies. Emma always positioned slightly away from Hannah, never touching, always watching. It wasn't family warmth. It was observation. I zoomed in until pixels broke apart, but the feeling only grew. Something about Emma was rehearsed, like she'd been living inside a story of her own creation. The next morning, Hannah's number called me, but the voice on the other end wasn't hers. It was low, calm, distinctly male. "Stop asking questions," he said. "You're not supposed to know." The call ended before I could respond. My chest tightened as I replayed the voice, trying to match it to anyone I knew. Was it someone from Emma's life? Someone she was protecting? Or hiding from? The mystery began to turn toxic, feeding on every unanswered question. I realized then that Emma's lie wasn't about a weekend or a cousin. It was a shield. And whatever it hid was still watching. I went to Emma's apartment that evening. Her door was slightly ajar. Inside, the lights were off, the air still. A faint smell of lavender and old paper hung in the room. On the coffee table lay a single photograph, Emma and Hannah as children, arms wrapped around each other, smiling under sunlight. But scrawled on the back, in smudged ink, were 4 words. "She isn't my cousin." My pulse roared in my ears. Somewhere behind me, a floorboard creaked. I turned slowly, breath catching in my throat, realizing I wasn't alone. Emma's silhouette stood motionless in the doorway, her face unreadable in the fractured light. "You shouldn't have come here," she said quietly. Her voice trembled at the edges, a sound more weary than hostile. I held up the photograph, the ink-stained confession between my fingers. "Then tell me who she is," I demanded. Emma stepped forward, the floor creaking beneath her heels. "She used to be my sister," she whispered, "until she decided she wasn't." The words hit harder than I expected, like something sharp but long dulled by grief. I wanted to ask what she meant, but her eyes, dark, red-rimmed and strangely detached, made it clear this was a wound still open. She told me everything in fragments, as if memory had become a language she barely remembered. Hannah wasn't her cousin. They'd grown up together in foster care, bound by necessity more than blood. Years ago, they both vanished for weeks, leaving behind a police file marked runaways. Emma claimed she returned alone. "They said I lied about her," she murmured, eyes fixed on the window. "But she's been following me ever since." My skin prickled. "Hannah?" "Following her. You saw her last night," I said, almost to remind her of the obvious. "She's real." Emma smiled faintly, the kind that hides despair. "Is she?" I left her apartment shaken, the street outside pulsing with neon reflections and uncertainty. Every word she'd said echoed against the storm that had begun to rise again. If Hannah wasn't who she claimed, then who had been sitting beside me that night? I scrolled through my phone, desperate to find any proof, messages, photos, anything. But Hannah's number was gone. Our conversation threads erased. Even the photo from the dinner had vanished from my gallery. The only thing left was a single notification from an unknown contact. Stop asking about the dead. I returned to the cafe where Hannah and I had met. The lights were off, the chairs stacked on tables, but the door was unlocked. Inside, the air was cold, metallic, and still carrying traces of espresso and rain. On the counter sat a small envelope addressed to me in Hannah's handwriting. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a photograph. Emma and Hannah again, this time older, standing near a riverbank. But Emma's face in the image looked exactly the same as now. Hannah's looked blurred, almost smudged by time or something else entirely. On the back, the same 4 words appeared again. She isn't my cousin. I drove straight to the riverbank from the photo, rain hammering against the windshield. The city lights dissolved into mist as I pulled over. The place looked unchanged from the image. Same crooked fence, same decaying dock stretching over black water. As I stepped closer, I saw a figure standing near the edge, long coat whipping in the wind. It was Hannah, or what looked like her. Emma shouldn't have told you, she said softly without turning. Her reflection shimmered faintly in the water, but the surface didn't ripple. She promised she'd stop digging. I froze, realization tightening around me like wire. When she finally turned, her eyes weren't hazel anymore. They were the color of the storm. I didn't remember driving back. The city blurred past me in streaks of light and water. My hands were shaking so violently I nearly dropped the steering wheel. Every rational thought screamed that what I'd seen wasn't possible, that the rain and exhaustion were distorting everything. Yet Hannah's voice still echoed, soft, mournful, and impossible. She promised she'd stop digging. I reached my building's parking lot, heart hammering. My phone buzzed with a new message. No name, no photo. Just one sentence. You weren't supposed to see her. The shadows outside my car deepened as though something had shifted in the air. Something watching, waiting. When I reached my apartment, the lights were already on. The door was unlocked. Every nerve in me screamed to run, but I stepped inside. Emma sat on my sofa, hair damp, eyes hollow, wearing the same clothes from earlier as if time hadn't moved. You went to the river, she said, voice trembling but calm. I didn't answer. She found you, she continued. Her gaze met mine, unblinking. That means she's close. I swallowed hard, words failing. Emma, I finally said, what are you running from? She stood slowly, her expression crumbling. Not what? She whispered. Who? Emma began to unravel, her voice breaking as she explained. After their disappearance years ago, only one girl returned. Hannah's body was never found, but Emma insisted she still saw her, standing by the water, sitting in reflections, whispering her name in dreams. She'd built her lie about the cousin to keep others from asking questions, to keep the illusion alive that Hannah was still just a call away. I thought if I kept pretending, she said, shaking, she'd stay gone. I felt the air thicken around us, an invisible pressure pulsing in rhythm with her words. But she's not gone, I whispered. You brought her back. Suddenly the room's lights flickered. A faint hum filled the air, electric and unnatural. Emma froze, eyes widening toward the hallway mirror. Don't look, she breathed, but I couldn't help it. In the reflection behind us, a third figure stood, wet hair clinging to her face, gray eyes staring straight at me. Hannah. Her reflection moved even though the room behind us was still. Emma's scream tore through the silence as the lamp shattered, plunging us into darkness. I stumbled back, the reflection fracturing into shards that glinted like trapped light. When the bulb flickered back to life, Hannah was gone, but her damp footprints led across the floor toward the door. By dawn, Emma was gone. Her coat hung still over the sofa, her phone on the counter buzzing with missed calls. The only trace she left was a damp outline of footprints that faded near the door. I searched the hallway, the stairwell, even the street, but there was no sign of her. The city was washed clean by rain, the air eerily still. I opened my phone to call her again, but before I could, a photo appeared in my gallery. It showed me, standing at my apartment window, taken from outside in the rain. In the reflection beside me was Emma. Behind her, Hannah, smiling faintly. The city felt quieter than it ever had, eerily so, as if sound itself was holding its breath. Emma's disappearance carved a hollow through my days. Her phone went straight to voicemail. Her apartment stood untouched. I found myself drawn back to the river, to the place she had feared most. The water was calm now, deceptively innocent under the pale dawn. I walked along the embankment, eyes scanning for anything left behind. Then, near the edge, I found a locket. Its chain rusted, the photo inside faded beyond recognition. My reflection wavered in the dark water, and for a brief second, I thought I saw a second face beside mine. Hannah's. I took the locket to a retired detective named Collins, who'd worked the runaway case years ago. He remembered Emma and Hannah instantly. They were inseparable, he said, pulling out an old case file. Until they weren't. Inside the folder were black and white photos. 2 girls by the river, one smiling, the other expressionless. Collins leaned back, sighing. We only found one set of footprints coming back. I stared at the images, the truth forming like fog behind glass. So which one returned? I asked. Collins' eyes met mine. We were never sure. That night, I studied the locket under a lamp. Beneath the tarnish, faint initials emerged. E. Tof. The same on both sides. My pulse quickened. The metal was warm, almost alive, in my palm. When I pried it open again, the faded image had changed. 2 girls now visible, their faces clear, Emma and Hannah, but not as I remembered them. They were identical, twins. The room darkened around me as though the air itself recoiled. My phone buzzed once, lighting up with an old photo I'd never taken. Emma and I at dinner, but Hannah seated between us, smiling directly into the camera. It all began to make sense in fragments. Emma's obsession with pretending Hannah was alive, the lies about the cousin, the messages warning me away. But if Hannah had died, who had I seen? Spoken to, touched? My reflection in the window quivered. Behind me, faint laughter rippled through the silence. I turned sharply, but no one was there. The air smelled faintly of rain, though the night outside was dry. Then, through the mirror's reflection, I saw Emma standing behind me. Pale, soaked, her expression hollow. You weren't supposed to find out, she said softly. Because if you remember her, she remembers you too. By morning, the mirror was cracked. Emma was gone again. Only her reflection remained, faintly visible even when I turned the glass to the wall. I packed a bag and drove without direction, following the highway out of the city until the skyline disappeared behind rain clouds. The locket hung from my rearview mirror, swinging gently. When I glanced at it, the reflection of the passenger seat caught my eye. Someone was sitting there. Wet hair, gray eyes, a faint smile that wasn't mine. I didn't stop. The road ahead vanished into fog, and behind the glass, her smile widened. I drove until sunrise painted the fog in bruised gold. The city was gone, replaced by empty roads and fields drowned in mist. I didn't know where I was heading, only that stopping meant facing whatever followed me. My phone, now cracked from the night before, flickered to life on its own. A map appeared, zooming toward a single pin. An abandoned estate near the river, the same one mentioned in Collins' case notes. I hesitated, then followed the direction, the locket swinging gently, tapping the mirror with every turn. Each tap felt deliberate, rhythmic, almost alive. The longer I drove, the stronger the smell of rain became, though the sky remained clear. The estate sat crumbling by the river, its windows shattered and ivy curling like veins across stone. Inside, dust and silence ruled, disturbed only by my cautious steps. I found remnants of the past, drawings pinned to a wall, Two girls with matching faces scrawled in pencil. One smiling, one shaded over in black. A diary rested beneath the window. Its pages, water-damaged, words half erased. The legible ones chilled me. If she comes back, I want to know which one I am. My reflection in the cracked glass beside the diary flickered. Not mimicking, but moving on its own, smiling faintly when I didn't. I heard footsteps upstairs. Slow, deliberate, barefoot against wood. My throat tightened as I climbed, each step groaning like a confession. The upper floor was nearly gutted, walls stripped to their bones. At the end of the hallway, a door stood ajar, faint light flickering through the gap. When I pushed it open, I saw her, Emma, standing by the window, staring into the river below. "I thought you were gone," I whispered. She turned, eyes unfocused. "She's here," she said softly. "And she wants you to remember her too." Behind her, a shadow shifted, its outline almost identical. Only the eyes were different. Emma's body trembled as she approached. "She wants to finish what we started," she said, reaching for my hand. "When we ran, one of us didn't make it back, but she found another way." I could feel her pulse. Fast, desperate, too warm. The reflection in the cracked window behind her began to move again, slowly peeling away from her shape like mist taking form. It smiled, stepping closer until both Emma and I could see it clearly. Hannah, no longer pale but vivid, alive in ways that defied logic. "You shouldn't have tried to save her," Hannah whispered. "You should have let her drown." The window shattered. When I woke, the room was silent again. Dust floating in shafts of weak daylight. Emma was gone. Only the river whispered outside, calm, indifferent. I stumbled to the broken window and saw two sets of footprints in the mud below, leading toward the water, then disappearing. My phone lay on the floor beside me, cracked but glowing. A new photo had appeared. The three of us, standing by the river. I was smiling. Emma and Hannah stood on either side, their faces identical now, no difference between them. Beneath the image was a single caption. "Now you remember." The locket around my neck pulsed once, warm against my skin, then cold as the river itself. Days passed, or maybe just hours. Time had thinned to something unmeasurable. I returned to the city, but it no longer felt like mine. My apartment was identical yet wrong, as if someone had rearranged reality while I was gone. Emma's coat still hung by the door, though I remembered leaving it at the river. The locket now felt heavier, dragging against my chest. At night, I heard two voices whispering through the walls, one pleading, one laughing softly. I tried to ignore them, but when I looked into the mirror, the reflection staring back wasn't quite my own. Its smile came half a second too late. I visited Collins again, hoping logic might still exist somewhere, but his office was empty, papers scattered, phone ringing endlessly. On his desk lay my file. My name was on it, dated years ago, attached to a report of 2 missing girls and 1 unidentified boy. The room tilted, my memories folded inward, scenes rearranging themselves. I saw flashes, water, screams, my own hands gripping someone's wrist under the surface. Maybe I'd been there all along. Maybe the reason I saw them was because I never left that river. The reflection in the dusty glass framed behind Colin's chair blinked once, even though I hadn't. That night, I returned to the river once more. The air was still, thick with the smell of moss and memory. The moon hung low, mirrored perfectly in the black surface. I walked to the edge where the footprints had ended. For the first time, I understood. They hadn't disappeared. They had merged, two paths folding into one. The locket vibrated softly, glowing faintly in the moonlight. I opened it, expecting the twin faces. Instead, it was my own, younger, blurred by water stains. Behind me, soft footsteps approached, familiar as breath. "It's time to go home." A voice said Emma's, or Hannah's, or maybe mine. The water reached for me with impossible gentleness. I didn't resist. The cold felt almost tender as it closed around my wrists. I heard laughter, faint but familiar, circling in the current. The river no longer looked black. It shimmered with faces, memories, and fragments of all the moments I'd refused to understand. Emma's voice floated somewhere above me, whispering, "Now she'll stop following you." I wanted to ask who she was, but the words drowned before they formed. The last thing I saw before the darkness folded over me was two figures by the shore, one turning away, the other smiling. Morning came. The river was calm again, as if it had never been disturbed. Local news mentioned an abandoned car found nearby. No driver, just a cracked phone and a rusted locket on the seat. In my apartment, the mirror remained fractured, but its reflection now showed only one figure. Emma. She stood quietly, gazing out through the glass, her lips parted as if mid-breath. Behind her, a faint second outline began to form, soft as light returning after a storm. The two shapes blurred, merged, and for a moment became one. Then the room emptied, leaving only the reflection of a river that wasn't really there.